You know, we talked with Norman Finkelstein on the Jimmy Dore Show yesterday about finding humor in these horribly dark times, and it's all Gallows humor. And there's no better example of Gallows humor than this video that we are about to play here of CNN trying to find out where the tunnels were under the cemetery that the IDF just leveled and destroyed. They basically are caught on camera desecrating a Gazan cemetery under the pretext that there were terrorist tunnels under it. And so, now that the cemetery has been cleared out, some reporters try and say, hey, can we see the tunnels that you say are right here? And look at how they are treated.
We're asking the general if we can actually see the shaft to the tunnel.
But the answer is no.
So?
There's all kinds of machinery which I don't want you to take pictures of. The security might force.
But what about if we don't film it? We just look with our eyes.
If you might fall in, the whole thing can collapse. Or you have to walk to the edge. The edge is not secured. It can collapse. There's machinery, so on. It's not something I'm going to take a risk on.
Not something I'm going to take a risk on. Listen to this. Look at this.
Machinery which I don't want you to take pictures of. The security might force.
But what about if we don't film it? We just look with our eyes.
You might fall in, the whole thing can collapse.
Unbelievable.
Or you have to walk to the edge is not secured. It can collapse.
So first he says no pictures. We don't want you taking pictures of the tunnel. Then they say, all right, we won't take pictures. Can we just see it so that we can report on it? Well, no, because you might fall in. The ground is not secure around it. You might fall in. Wow.
There's machinery, so on. It's not something I'm going to take a risk on.
Complicated case. A lot of
The Israeli military later provided this drone footage showing the tunnel shaft we entered and another one nearby. CNN geolocated the footage using this satellite image. This outline shows where the cemetery once stood, and these are the two tunnel entrances clearly outside the graveyard. As for the tunnel they say they found here, where the cemetery once stood, the military never provided any evidence.
Busted. Wow.
Well, they just lie constantly. They literally, this one amazed me when they showed the whiteboard in the hospital claiming it was a terrorist list, and it was actually like the lunch list. Yeah. Like the arrogance to just assume no one's going to translate it, that you can just say whatever the fuck. Like nobody can read Arabic. Like what did you think? Like nobody was going to look at that?
Well, with this, they didn't even take the time. And this speaks to the arrogance that you're talking about. They didn't even take the time to get a bullshit story straight, because you would think, okay, if we really want to deny the press access to this cemetery that we just destroyed for no other reason but to displace the population, to destroy the society, which is, yes, a violation of Item C, Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, we are not anticipating that the journalists are going to ask to see this evidence. So when they do, let's come up with a story. When they ask to see this, why don't we just say it's a safety issue? But that's not where they went. First, they said, well, we don't want you taking pictures. All right, fine, we won't take pictures. Well, we can't let you here anyway because it's a safety issue, right? If they had their bullshit story straight, they'd have just led with, well, it's a safety issue. We can't let you here. But of course, how could it be like, it's just absurd. Like, what do you mean you're going to fall in?
Well, we just covered yesterday with Norm in an area that the Israeli troops have pulled out of. They dug up 30 bodies of people who had their hands tied behind their back with cable with Hebrew writing on it. Can you imagine if they found that in Ukraine? You hardly hear this in the media. I had to really dig to find articles about this. You could only really find articles about it in Al Jazeera, the New Arab, but you really nothing from the American press. I mean, this is this is Pol Pot level kinds of atrocities that we're uncovering here. How do you define this as anything other than a genocide? And when you combine that with another thing, Norm just dropped this article And if anyone wants to see it, he just dropped it yesterday on his Substack, Norm Finkelstein on Substack. 2014, he did an article about the testimonies of soldiers talking about how they were razing all the buildings with no military intent, how the tank operators would just be told to fire and level the neighborhood without having taken any incoming fire, without any threat there. So the argument they're only doing this because of October 7th, bullshit. This is part of an ongoing campaign that really started in 1948, because you go back there and we have exchanges and memos between the leadership talking about how they didn't want to come to an agreement with the UN because fuck them. We don't have to give anything up. Let's just play the waiting game. Israel has been playing, the more you dig into this history, the more you see, like a boa constrictor. They've been playing this very long game of squeezing the Palestinian people and eliminating them from the territory, moving the settlers in. And this was definitely Ilan Pappé who said, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he essentially said, the greatest propaganda feat Israel pulled off was convincing people that this is complicated.
Right.
And that's what they hide behind. It's a complicated situation. I actually know an Israeli who said, and this is a very common explanation you'll hear from Israelis and Zionists. The Palestinians are led by terrible people. That's the problem. They have terrible leadership. You installed that leadership, you motherfuckers. So if you look at that, you look at 2014, this was not a response to an October 7th event. And the soldiers described that they're razing the houses, razing these neighborhoods. This has been a very long-term strategy to displace and eliminate by any means possible the Palestinian people. And October 7th gave them a great pretext to just go all out. And the United States, because of its own, what it perceives as its strategic interests, will never hold them accountable, and they know that. But I think even people who might have been skeptical of Israel or critical of Israel, it's stunning the level of atrocity they're willing to commit in broad daylight. I mean, do you think nobody's going to find that mass grave? Like, what are they thinking?
Please clap.